A human being alone in the open ocean is almost perfectly defenseless. There is no ground beneath the feet, no shelter to reach, no way to move quickly enough to escape anything that truly belongs there. Every kick carries the swimmer only a short distance. Every breath must be taken at the surface. Sound arrives strangely through the water, difficult to place, while the blue below deepens until it seems to have no bottom at all. Then a shape appears beneath the swimmer. At first, it is little more than a shadow, too large and too controlled to be mistaken for a fish. It rises without urgency, black spreading through the water, followed by a white patch and the unmistakable curve of a dorsal fin. An orca has arrived. It does not rush. It does not need to. One movement of its tail could carry it farther than several desperate strokes from the person above. Its body may weigh thousands of kilograms. Its teeth are strong enough to grip animals wrapped in thick blubber. Its family may know how to isolate whale calves, wash seals from floating ice, overwhelm dolphins and force sharks from hunting grounds they have occupied for years. Beside it, the human is not a rival. The human is not even difficult prey. The orca rises close enough to look, turns slightly, and passes beneath the swimmer with the calmness of an animal that understands exactly how much power it possesses. Then it disappears into the blue. That moment contains one of the strangest contradictions in the natural world. There may be no large predator in the ocean more capable of killing a person, and yet wild orcas do not normally hunt human beings. They encounter swimmers, surfers, kayakers, divers, and people fallen from boats. They sometimes approach closely enough for a human to see the texture of their skin or the small eye hidden within the black side of the head. They may circle, inspect, follow, or briefly make contact, but the encounter almost never becomes what their encounters with seals, porpoises, or whales can become. The animal with the ability to dismantle some of the ocean's most formidable creatures appears to leave one unusually vulnerable primate outside its menu. The name makes this seem even more impossible. Killer whale. Few animal names carry such immediate judgment. It suggests an indiscriminate predator, a creature defined not simply by hunting, but by killing itself. For centuries, sailors and fishermen saw the black fins gathering around whales and understood only the violence at the surface. Packs of these animals attacked larger cetaceans with such coordination that early observers reportedly described them as whale killers. Over time, the words reversed. The whale killer became the killer whale, and the name followed the species into aquariums, films, news reports, and childhood imagination. Even before most people learn what an orca does, they learn what it is called. But the name conceals as much as it reveals. An orca is not a true whale in the way a blue whale, humpback, or right whale is commonly understood. It is the largest member of the oceanic dolphin family. The rounded forehead, sophisticated echolocation system, social complexity, and extraordinary capacity for vocal learning all connect it to dolphins. Yet nothing else in that family approaches the same combination of size, strength, and ecological reach. Adult males can carry dorsal fins rising nearly 2 meters above the back, dark blades visible long before the rest of the animal breaks the surface. Their bodies are built with almost deceptive simplicity, black, white, and gray, smooth enough to appear sculpted, powerful enough to dominate environments ranging from narrow coastal channels to the edges of Antarctic ice. They live in every ocean. Orcas travel beneath northern lights and tropical sun, through fjords, open seas, continental shelves, and frozen passages. They can appear near crowded cities, remote islands, or places where no permanent human settlement exists for hundreds of kilometers. Across that enormous range, they occupy the highest level of marine food webs. Healthy adult orcas have no regular natural predator other than other orcas, and even conflicts between them remain poorly understood. In many ecosystems, they do not merely consume prey. Their presence changes how other hunters behave. Seals alter where they enter the water. Whales become more defensive. Sharks may abandon feeding areas. An orca does not always need to attack in order to influence the life around it. Sometimes, a dorsal fin is enough. This is why the human exception cannot be dismissed as a simple question of opportunity. Humans enter orca habitat constantly. We swim from beaches used by seals. We paddle through channels crossed by hunting groups. We dive near reefs, travel in small boats, and spend long hours in coastal waters where these animals feed. From the perspective of pure physical vulnerability, a person in the sea offers almost no meaningful defense. We are slower than nearly every marine mammal an orca pursues. We lack thick skin, protective tusks, powerful jaws, and the ability to remain underwater for long periods. If an orca approached a human with the same intention it brings to a harbor seal, there would be little uncertainty about the outcome. Yet predation is more complicated than the ability to overpower something. A predator does not move through the world attacking every animal it could kill. Hunting costs energy. It creates risk. It depends on recognition, timing, experience, and expectations formed long before the moment of contact. A lion may ignore an unfamiliar animal standing within reach. A specialist bird may starve beside food it has never learned to exploit. A shark may investigate with its mouth because its sensory world differs from ours, while another predator may rely on generations of learned behavior before deciding what deserves pursuit. The crucial question is not simply whether an orca can kill a human. It clearly can. The question is whether an orca identifies a human as prey at all. That distinction changes the meaning of every encounter. When an orca approaches a diver, the movement may look frightening because the animal is large and the human is not. But approach alone tells us almost nothing about intention. Curiosity is not hunting. Investigation is not aggression. Aggression is not always predation. A defensive strike, a playful push, and an attempt to feed may all place an animal close to a human, yet they arise from entirely different motivations. Play itself can be surprisingly forceful in an animal of this size. Orcas manipulate kelp, carry objects, chase one another, create waves, and sometimes interact with animals they do not consume. Behavior that is harmless between two members of a pod could be dangerous to a person simply because the difference in mass is so extreme. A young orca does not need to intend injury for injury to occur. The same is true of investigation. An orca may orient its body, roll to expose an eye, or change direction repeatedly while examining something unfamiliar. To a person in the water, this can feel like being selected. To the orca, it may be closer to inspection. Aggression introduces another layer. Like all powerful social animals, orcas can threaten, strike, and defend themselves. They compete. They establish boundaries. They react to stress. They may respond to boats, fishing gear, or repeated disturbance. None of this makes them gentle, and the absence of a wild hunting tradition focused on humans should never be mistaken for a guarantee of safety. These are large predators making decisions within an environment we enter only temporarily. Respect is not the same as panic, but it is necessary. The most important confusion arises when people place wild encounters and captivity into the same category. Orcas held in marine parks have injured and killed humans. Those events are real, tragic, and inseparable from any honest discussion of the species. But an orca living in a concrete enclosure exists under conditions profoundly different from those shaping a free-ranging animal. Its movement is restricted. Its social relationships may be disrupted or artificially arranged. It cannot leave when conflict develops. It lives in continuous proximity to people, often while performing behaviors linked to food and training. A fatal incident in captivity demonstrates the immense power of the animal and the risks of forcing close contact. It does not establish that wild orcas naturally regard human beings as prey. Predation has a pattern. It is not merely an attack. A hunting animal searches, approaches, captures, disables, and often consumes. These stages may vary, but together they reveal purpose. With wild orcas and humans, that pattern is conspicuously absent. There is no known population that repeatedly searches for swimmers, teaches calves to capture them, follows human seasonal movements, or returns to particular coastlines because people provide a dependable food source. There is no human hunting equivalent of the orcas that wait for salmon, pursue seals, or follow whale migrations. Whatever the reason, people have not become an established prey tradition. That is where the true mystery begins. Perhaps humans are too unfamiliar. Perhaps our movement, sound, and body composition fail to trigger the expectations associated with prey. Perhaps we offer too little reward compared with the fatty marine mammals hunted by some populations. Perhaps orcas understand that humans are connected to boats and other dangers. Or perhaps the answer lies not in a calculation made by each individual, but in something inherited. An orca calf does not discover the ocean alone. It grows inside a family that teaches it where to travel, what sounds matter, which animals deserve attention, and how food is captured. If no generation before it treated humans as prey, there may be no reason for the calf to begin. It is tempting to imagine a more flattering explanation. We would like to believe that orcas recognize human intelligence, feel kinship with us, or deliberately choose mercy. Their behavior sometimes invites that interpretation. They have helped guide lost animals, brought objects to people, and approached humans with an apparent gentleness that feels almost deliberate. But admiration can become another form of misunderstanding. To claim that orcas spare us because they respect us may say more about what humans hope to see than about what the animals actually experience. Science cannot enter an orca's private thoughts. It can only study patterns, what they hunt, what they ignore, how behavior spreads, and how families preserve traditions across time. The answer, therefore, cannot be found by asking whether orcas are kind or cruel. They are neither in the human sense. They are predators shaped by an ocean older than our species, making choices through senses, memories, and social relationships that only partly resemble our own. To understand why they leave us alive, we first have to understand how they decide what to kill, and that becomes more difficult the moment we stop speaking about orcas as though they were all the same animal. A black dorsal fin rising from the Pacific may belong to a whale that eats almost nothing but fish. Another fin in the same waters may belong to a hunter whose family has pursued seals and dolphins for generations. Far offshore, another community may wear its teeth down on shark skin. Near Antarctic ice, a group may know how to create waves with enough precision to remove a seal from a flow. They may share an appearance, an anatomy, and a name, yet live according to completely different rules. The human mystery cannot be solved by asking what the orca hunts, because there is no single answer. Before we can understand why they do not hunt us, we must enter the separate worlds hidden inside the black and white. The ocean does not have one kingdom, it has thousands. Some are built around coral reefs that blaze with color beneath tropical sunlight. Others exist beneath drifting Arctic ice, where the water remains close to freezing for most of the year. Some are shallow enough for sunlight to illuminate every grain of sand on the seabed, while others descend into darkness so complete that no ray of daylight has reached them for millions of years. Every one of these places has shaped the animals that live there, forcing them to adapt to different temperatures, different prey, different dangers, and different opportunities. At first glance, the orca appears to have solved that challenge better than any other marine predator. No other large hunter has spread so successfully across the planet. Orcas patrol the icy waters surrounding Antarctica, weave between Norwegian fjords, follow salmon through the Pacific Northwest, cruise beneath tropical skies, and disappear into the endless blue of the open ocean. They are found in almost every sea on Earth. It is tempting to imagine that such a successful predator must follow one universal way of life, one perfected strategy repeated across every coastline. But that assumption turns out to be one of the greatest misunderstandings ever made about killer whales. The deeper scientists looked, the stranger the picture became. The animal we casually call the orca is not one story. It is dozens of stories, unfolding simultaneously across the world's oceans. Imagine standing on a rocky shoreline in British Columbia as a pod of sleek black dorsal fins slices through calm water. The animals travel with purpose, but without urgency. Their movements appear almost choreographed. Occasionally one surfaces beside another before disappearing again beneath the surface. They pass through an area rich with seals, resting on nearby rocks. Harbor seals swim only a short distance away. Sea lions haul themselves onto floating kelp. Every instinct tells a human observer that this is the moment the hunt begins. It never does. The orcas continue forward, as though the seals do not even exist. Hours later, they begin feeding, but not on mammals. They have been searching for salmon. The seals survive because, to these particular orcas, they are almost invisible as food. Hundreds of kilometers away, another pod enters almost identical water, the same species, the same black and white markings, the same powerful bodies. This time, the atmosphere feels different. Before anything even happens, the animals spread out slightly. Their movements become quieter. They stop vocalizing almost completely. Ahead of them, a seal slips into the water. Within moments, the hunt begins with astonishing precision. Every movement appears rehearsed. Every member of the family understands its role. The seal that another group ignored completely has suddenly become the center of absolute attention. This is not because one group is hungrier than the other. It is because they belong to different cultures. One has inherited salmon, the other has inherited seals. This discovery transformed the scientific understanding of orcas. For decades, researchers assumed that killer whales simply ate whatever large prey happened to be available. That idea seemed logical. After all, an apex predator should exploit every opportunity. Evolution rewards flexibility. Yet field observations kept producing contradictions. Certain pods ignored prey that would provide enormous amounts of energy while traveling long distances in search of only one particular species. Others specialized so completely that they almost never deviated from their preferred diet, despite living beside many other edible animals. These were not random choices. They were consistent across generations. The more scientists documented individual populations, the clearer it became that prey preference was being inherited rather than invented. Along the Pacific coast of North America, researchers eventually identified several major ecotypes of killer whales, each living according to remarkably different rules. Resident killer whales became famous for their devotion to fish, particularly salmon. Entire family groups synchronized their lives with seasonal fish migrations. Their movements, vocal behavior, and social organization all reflected this dependence. They often traveled in relatively large family groups, filled with constant communication. They called frequently because fish cannot hear the high-frequency sounds of killer whale echolocation in the same way marine mammals can. There was little need for silence. Conversation flowed continuously beneath the surface. Every whistle and call reinforced family bonds developed over decades. These resident pods often contained multiple generations traveling together under the guidance of experienced females that knew ancient migration routes by memory. The social stability of these communities became one of their defining characteristics. Then there were the Biggs killer whales, once called transient killer whales. Their world could not have been more different. Instead of salmon, they hunted mammals, harbor seals, sea lions, dolphins, porpoises, occasionally even young whales. Unlike resident pods, these hunters usually traveled in much smaller groups. Silence became one of their greatest weapons. Marine mammals possess excellent hearing. Loud communication could betray an ambush long before it began. Instead, these families often moved quietly through coastal waters, relying on stealth rather than constant vocal contact. Their social lives reflected their hunting strategy. Smaller groups reduced noise, increased flexibility, and made coordinated attacks easier. The difference between the two ecotypes extended beyond behavior. Their genetics diverged, their movement patterns differed, their family structures evolved separately over thousands of years. Even though they occupied overlapping regions, encounters between them remained surprisingly uneventful. They rarely socialized, they almost never interbred. They existed beside one another like neighboring civilizations speaking different languages and following different traditions. Offshore killer whales added another layer of complexity. These animals spent much of their lives far from shore, making them difficult to study for many years. What scientists gradually discovered astonished them once again. Offshore populations appeared to consume large quantities of sharks and other substantial fish. Their teeth often showed extensive wear, unlike that seen in resident fish specialists. Shark skin is covered with tiny tooth-like scales called dermal denticles, creating an abrasive surface almost like underwater sandpaper. Years of biting into shark flesh gradually ground down their teeth. Even their diet left permanent signatures on their bodies. 3 ecotypes, 3 remarkably different lifestyles, 1 common ancestor, and this diversity exists within only one region of the Pacific. Elsewhere, the picture becomes even richer. Around Antarctica, researchers have documented multiple forms of killer whales with distinctive body shapes, color patterns, habitat preferences, and feeding strategies. Some patrol the edges of drifting sea ice, searching for seals hauled onto floating platforms. Others pursue fish beneath the frozen surface. Some travel through pack ice, where few predators dare venture. Slight differences in eye patches, dorsal fins, and gray saddle markings help distinguish populations that have adapted to unique ecological niches over countless generations. Each community possesses its own accumulated knowledge of survival. Every ocean writes its own version of the orca story. This extraordinary diversity has forced scientists to ask a question that would have sounded almost impossible only decades ago. Are all killer whales actually the same species? Increasing genetic evidence suggests that at least some of these populations have remained separated long enough to begin following independent evolutionary paths. Behavior, ecology, and culture may have driven biological divergence itself. Although scientists continue debating exactly how these populations should be classified, the discussion reveals just how profound the differences have become. We are no longer talking about animals with slightly different diets. We may be observing lineages that have been traveling separate evolutionary roads for hundreds of thousands of years. Perhaps the most fascinating part of this story is that none of these differences can be explained by appetite alone. Humans often imagine food preference as a matter of taste. One individual enjoys one meal, while another prefers something else. Orcas operate very differently. A young resident killer whale is not born craving salmon because salmon happen to taste good. It grows up inside a family where salmon define existence. From its earliest days, it watches older relatives locate fish, coordinate movements, and recognize seasonal migrations. Every successful hunt reinforces that identity. Food becomes part of culture. Another calf raised inside a Biggs family experiences an entirely different childhood. It watches adults stalk seals in silence, coordinate ambushes, and share marine mammal prey. It never observes salmon hunting because salmon simply do not occupy the same importance within its inherited world. Over time, prey recognition becomes deeply embedded within the social life of the pod. This may be one of the most remarkable examples of culture outside our own species. Human children inherit languages, traditions, recipes, occupations, and customs from those around them. Orca calves inherit oceans interpreted through family experience. One community sees opportunity, where another sees nothing at all. A harbor seal floating peacefully at the surface may represent a complete meal to one family and complete irrelevance to another. This realization changes everything about the mystery surrounding humans. Earlier, we asked why the ocean's greatest predator almost never hunts people. The question assumed that humans would naturally qualify as prey simply because they are vulnerable. But vulnerability alone has never determined what orcas hunt. If one population can ignore fat-rich seals swimming only meters away because seals do not belong to its inherited tradition, then perhaps humans are asking the wrong question entirely. Instead of wondering why people are spared despite being edible, perhaps we should ask something far stranger. What if humans have simply never entered the cultural definition of food? In the orca's world, being physically killable and being recognized as prey may be two completely different things. That possibility would explain far more than simple kindness ever could. It suggests that the most powerful predator in the ocean is guided not merely by instinct, but by generations of accumulated knowledge passed from one family to the next. Somewhere inside that inheritance lies the first real clue to the mystery that brought us here. But culture alone cannot explain such extraordinary success. Before traditions can be passed from one generation to another, there must first exist an animal physically capable of turning those lessons into reality. An animal whose body, senses, and intelligence have been refined over millions of years until almost nothing in the ocean remains beyond its reach. A harbor seal cannot see very far through the dark water. Light disappears quickly beneath the surface, swallowed by suspended particles and drifting shadows. Every movement becomes uncertain. Shapes dissolve into blue long before they reveal their identity. But hearing works differently. Low vibrations travel astonishing distances beneath the sea, carrying information long before anything becomes visible. Somewhere in that darkness, the seal pauses. At first, there is nothing unusual, only the familiar rhythm of waves and the faint crackling produced by tiny shrimp and distant fish. Then, the silence changes, not because a sound grows louder, but because something expected has disappeared. The ocean suddenly feels empty. The seal turns. It sees nothing. A second passes, then another. Far away, almost too faint to notice, a single click passes through the water. Then another, then nothing again. Whatever produced those sounds is already building a picture of everything around it. Every cliff face, every current, every fish, every heartbeat, every movement. The seal is still searching with its eyes. The hunters have already mapped the world through sound. This difference defines almost everything about an orca. Long before it becomes one of the ocean's most successful predators, it becomes one of its greatest information gatherers. Power alone has never created an apex predator. A great white shark possesses enormous strength, yet it often investigates unfamiliar objects because its understanding of the environment is incomplete. Crocodiles rely on explosive ambushes after waiting with extraordinary patience. Sperm whales descend into darkness where almost no sunlight exists, hunting creatures few animals will ever encounter. Every great predator has evolved around a particular solution to the problem of finding food. Orcas solved that problem differently. They did not simply become stronger, they became astonishingly aware of the world around them. At first glance, their bodies appear almost simple. Black across the back, brilliant white beneath the chin and belly, a white patch behind each eye, and a soft grey saddle behind the dorsal fin. It is one of the most recognizable patterns in the animal kingdom, visible from aircraft, research vessels, and even satellites under the right conditions. Yet every line serves a purpose. The dark upper body blends into the darkness below when viewed from above. The lighter underside merges with sunlight, filtering downward when seen from beneath. This countershading is common among marine predators, making it more difficult for prey to distinguish them against changing backgrounds. Even before an orca begins to hunt, evolution has already hidden it in plain sight. Adult males are among the largest dolphins ever to exist. Some exceed 8 meters in length and can weigh well over 5,000 kilograms. Their towering dorsal fins may approach 2 meters high, making them unmistakable whenever they break the surface. Females are noticeably smaller, usually measuring between 6 and 7 meters, with curved dorsal fins rather than the tall triangular structures carried by mature males. This difference between the sexes, known as sexual dimorphism, extends beyond appearance. Males often possess broader pectoral flippers, heavier bodies, and larger skulls, while females remain slightly more agile and generally live longer. Yet both sexes share the same remarkable design, a body shaped less like a bulky whale and more like a perfectly balanced underwater athlete. Unlike many fish, whose propulsion comes from side-to-side movement, an orca drives itself forward through powerful up and down strokes of the tail flukes. Beneath the smooth skin lie immense layers of muscle anchored along the spine. Each stroke pushes enormous volumes of water behind the animal, generating acceleration that surprises even experienced researchers. An orca can burst forward with astonishing speed, reaching nearly 50 kilometers per hour for short periods. More importantly, it can maintain efficient cruising speeds for hours while traveling across vast distances. It is not built merely for sprinting, it is built for endurance. Every curve of the body reduces drag. Every movement conserves energy. In water, efficiency often matters more than raw strength. The tail itself deserves special attention because it functions as far more than an engine. A fully grown orca can generate tremendous force through a single downward stroke. During hunts, this power becomes a weapon. Fish may be stunned by carefully aimed tail slaps. Rays can be flipped. Even larger prey may become disoriented after repeated impacts. Observers watching herring hunts in Norway have seen orcas herd enormous schools into dense bait balls before striking them with their tails. One precise blow may incapacitate multiple fish at once. Rather than chasing individuals through open water, the orcas reshape the behavior of the entire school before delivering carefully controlled strikes. Their success comes from strategy combined with physical precision. Their teeth reinforce that strategy. Unlike sharks, which constantly replace rows of serrated teeth designed for slicing flesh, orcas possess large conical teeth built for gripping. Adults usually carry between 40 and 50 of them. These teeth are not intended for chewing. Orcas generally swallow food in large chunks or whole. During mammal hunts, they seize prey securely, while other members of the pod assist. The objective is control, rather than delicate cutting. Once a seal, dolphin or whale calf has been restrained, the combined force of several adults often determines the outcome far more efficiently than any single bite could. This is one reason documentaries showing spectacular jaws sometimes misunderstand the true nature of an orca hunt. Teeth matter, but they are only one tool among many. Depending on the prey, an orca may kill through repeated impacts, prolonged pursuit, coordinated restraint, or drowning. Large whales may be exhausted over hours before finally weakening. Seals can be separated from escape routes. Dolphins may be isolated from their pod. Sharks can be rolled into temporary immobility. Every hunt changes, according to circumstance, because the body supports flexibility rather than one rigid method. Even vision reflects that adaptability. Orcas possess excellent eyesight both above and below the surface. Their eyes have evolved to function in dramatically different environments, adjusting as the animal repeatedly crosses the boundary between air and water. At the surface, they can monitor seabirds, coastlines, ice flows, and distant splashes. Beneath the water, they detect movement, contrast, and shape with remarkable efficiency. Yet vision alone cannot explain their success, because oceans rarely remain clear. Rivers carry sediment into coastal bays. Storms churn the seabed. Polar winters reduce light for months. The deep ocean becomes almost completely black. An apex predator dependent only on eyesight would lose much of its advantage. Orcas solved this limitation millions of years ago through one of the most sophisticated biological sonar systems ever evolved. Inside the nasal passages beneath the blowhole, specialized structures generate rapid clicks. These sounds are directed forward through a rounded fatty organ in the forehead known as the melon. The melon acts like an acoustic lens, focusing sound into concentrated beams traveling through the water. When those clicks strike an object, they bounce back as echoes. But hearing those echoes requires another remarkable adaptation. Instead of receiving sound primarily through the external ear, orcas channel returning vibrations through specialized fatty tissues inside the lower jaw. These tissues conduct sound toward the middle and inner ear with extraordinary efficiency. Every returning echo contains information: distance, direction, relative size, shape, movement, surface texture, density. Even subtle differences between living animals and inanimate objects become detectable. The process unfolds so quickly that it appears effortless, but the calculations taking place inside the brain are astonishing. An orca does not simply hear echoes, it constructs a constantly updating three-dimensional model of its surroundings. Imagine entering a completely dark room where your eyes reveal absolutely nothing. Now imagine that every quiet click you produce instantly tells you where every wall stands, how far away another person is, whether they are turning, breathing, or remaining still, and even whether the object ahead is solid rock or the soft body of a fish. That begins to approach what echolocation allows these animals to experience every second. This is why the seal, waiting in dark water, never truly disappears from an orca's awareness. Darkness protects only those who depend on light. For an echolocating predator, darkness simply changes the balance between different senses. Sound often becomes more trustworthy than vision. Different communities even modify their acoustic behavior according to the prey they pursue. Resident fish-eating populations vocalize frequently because salmon cannot detect these sounds in ways that threaten the hunt. Communication strengthens social cohesion without sacrificing success. Mammal hunting populations behave very differently. Seals, dolphins, and porpoises possess acute underwater hearing. Loud communication risks announcing the hunters long before they arrive. These orcas often travel in remarkable silence, reducing clicks and calls until the moment is right. Their quietness is not evidence of lesser communication. It is evidence of discipline. Every hunting tradition shapes how the senses are used. This versatility allows orcas to exploit environments that would challenge almost any other predator. They hunt across open oceans where prey may be scattered over enormous distances. They navigate narrow fjords where cliffs alter the movement of sound. They enter shallow beaches where precision becomes essential to avoid stranding. They patrol rough coastlines battered by surf, powerful enough to overturn boats. They move beneath drifting Antarctic ice, where visibility can disappear completely. They descend into darkness, where the sun has no influence at all. The ocean keeps changing, but the orca changes with it, because its greatest weapon has never been brute strength alone. It is the ability to gather information, interpret that information, and transform it into action. Yet even this extraordinary body remains incomplete on its own. Muscles generate power, teeth provide grip, sonar reveals hidden worlds. None of those abilities explains how several individuals can coordinate silently, predict one another's movements without hesitation, and perform hunting strategies too complex for any solitary animal to invent alone. The deeper researchers studied successful hunts, the clearer one truth became. An individual orca is impressive. A family of orcas becomes something altogether different. A lone calf enters the world already surrounded by voices it recognizes. Long before it ever sees the shimmering surface above, it has spent months listening from within its mother's body. The muffled rhythm of her heartbeat, the distant echoes of the pod's calls, the constant movement through the sea. Its education begins before birth. When the calf finally emerges into cold ocean water, it does not arrive in a lonely wilderness where survival depends only on instinct. It arrives inside a family that has been waiting for it, a family that has traveled together for decades, sometimes for generations. Older siblings circle nearby, aunts remain close, grandmothers surface beside the exhausted mother. Every individual already knows the newest member of the pod matters. In many ways, this moment tells us more about why orcas became the ocean's greatest predators than any tooth, fin, or muscle ever could. Their true strength does not begin inside the body of one animal. It begins inside the memory of many. Human beings often admire intelligence as something carried inside an individual mind. We celebrate inventors, explorers, and scientists whose discoveries change history. But nature sometimes follows a different path. Some of the most successful societies do not rely on one brilliant individual. They depend on knowledge that survives longer than any single lifetime. Orcas have perfected exactly that system. Their greatest adaptation may not be their enormous brain, their powerful tail, or their sophisticated sonar. It may be their ability to preserve experience across generations, allowing every new calf to inherit an ocean already understood long before it was born. At the center of nearly every stable orca society stands a mother, not simply because she gives birth, but because the entire social structure is built around her descendants. Scientists call these family groups matrilines. Unlike many mammals where offspring eventually leave to establish independent lives, orca families often remain connected for life. Daughters usually stay with their mothers. Sons stay as well, even after reaching adulthood and becoming among the largest predators on Earth. A fully grown male, weighing several tons, may still travel beside the same mother that guided him through his earliest years. Few relationships in the animal kingdom remain this enduring. It creates families unlike almost anything humans expect from large predators. Instead of constantly separating and reforming, generations remain woven together into remarkably stable societies. Spend enough time observing one pod, and patterns begin to emerge that seem almost familiar. Certain individuals consistently swim beside one another. Younger animals position themselves near experienced adults. Mothers adjust their speed to accommodate calves that have not yet mastered long-distance travel. During difficult moments, the group compresses, surrounding the youngest members almost instinctively. None of this is directed by a visible leader issuing commands. Coordination grows naturally from relationships strengthened over decades. Every individual knows the others because they have shared the same ocean for much of their lives. Researchers, following individual pods year after year, began recognizing family trees stretching back generations. They watched calves grow into adults, adults become parents, and aging females continue traveling beside descendants that now included grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Unlike many long-term scientific studies, where animals disappear before their stories can unfold, killer whales allowed researchers to witness complete family histories. Over time, something remarkable became obvious. The oldest females often remained among the most important individuals in the pod, even after they had stopped reproducing. In most mammals, reproduction defines much of an individual's evolutionary importance. Once offspring can no longer be produced, survival beyond that point contributes relatively little to future generations. Orcas challenge that assumption. Females frequently live for decades after giving birth to their last calf. At first, this puzzled scientists. Maintaining a large adult requires energy. Why would evolution preserve such long post-reproductive lives unless those individuals continued contributing something profoundly valuable? The answer slowly emerged through years of patient observation. During difficult periods, older females consistently made a difference. When salmon numbers declined, experienced matriarchs often guided their families toward feeding grounds younger animals failed to locate. They appeared to remember where prey had been found during previous shortages, sometimes decades earlier. An ocean changes constantly, but not every pattern disappears. Rivers continue emptying into the sea. Salmon return to ancestral spawning grounds. Seasonal currents repeat familiar cycles. An elderly female that has survived several poor years possesses something impossible for younger animals to obtain quickly. She has lived through history. Consider what that means from the perspective of a young orca experiencing its first food shortage. Hunger creates uncertainty. Familiar hunting grounds produce fewer fish. The pod searches longer between successful meals. Yet beside the calf swims an animal that encountered similar conditions 30 years earlier. She remembers another river, another migration, another coastline where survival remained possible when others failed. Memory becomes nourishment. Experience becomes food. Researchers eventually described this phenomenon as the grandmother effect. Statistical studies suggested that older females could improve the survival of descendants, particularly during years when prey became scarce. Their value did not come from producing more calves. It came from helping existing calves survive. This may explain why natural selection favored such long lifespans. Knowledge itself became an evolutionary advantage. The matriarch transformed into something no map could ever replace, a living archive carried through the sea. Imagine trying to navigate an unfamiliar continent without written records, roads, or satellite navigation. Every river crossing, every dangerous valley, and every reliable food source would have to be remembered by someone who had traveled there before. Orca societies solve that problem through living memory. An old female may know precisely when salmon arrive at a certain river mouth, how tides change access to feeding grounds, where dangerous currents form after storms, or which sheltered bays provide safety during rough weather. She cannot write these lessons. She demonstrates them simply by leading the family. Every journey becomes another chapter in the education of younger generations. Even the sounds filling the water carry history. Every pod develops distinctive vocal traditions, often described as dialects. To human ears, the calls may sound broadly similar, but detailed acoustic analysis reveals consistent differences between communities. Certain call types belong almost exclusively to particular families. Young calves gradually learn these vocal patterns exactly as human children absorb the language spoken around them. The dialect becomes a marker of identity. It tells others not merely what species the animal belongs to, but which family shaped its life. In this way, culture travels through sound. Every whistle, pulse, and call carries echoes of generations that produced it. Communication serves practical purposes during travel and hunting, but it also reinforces belonging. A calf learns who answers its calls. It learns which voices signal safety, guidance, and companionship. Identity forms through constant interaction. Food itself becomes another expression of family bonds. Observers have repeatedly documented adults sharing prey with younger relatives. Mothers often provide food directly to calves that have not yet mastered independent hunting. Even older offspring may receive portions during successful hunts. Sharing strengthens relationships while ensuring inexperienced animals continue learning without facing starvation each time they fail. Survival becomes a collective achievement rather than an individual contest. This pattern sharply contrasts with the image many people hold of apex predators as solitary competitors constantly struggling against one another. Orcas demonstrate that cooperation can become just as powerful as competition when families remain intact over lifetimes. Perhaps nowhere is this cooperation more visible than during travel. Pods covering dozens of kilometers each day rarely appear disorganized. Individuals maintain remarkably consistent spacing while adjusting naturally to changing conditions. Calves surface beside mothers with astonishing precision despite waves, currents, and shifting speeds. During difficult crossings, the group subtly rearranges itself, experienced adults remaining near younger animals. No single behavior appears extraordinary in isolation. Together, they reveal a society functioning through continuous mutual awareness. Every individual monitors the others, while contributing to the movement of the whole. Yet this remarkable system also possesses a hidden vulnerability. When an experienced matriarch dies, the family loses far more than another member. It may lose decades of accumulated ecological knowledge, impossible to replace immediately. Migration routes remembered only through experience may become less reliable. Rare feeding opportunities may disappear from collective memory. Young animals inherit fewer stories of previous hardships because the individual who lived them is gone. Scientists have observed changes in survival following the loss of older females, suggesting that knowledge itself can influence the fate of future generations. Intelligence therefore exists on two levels. One resides inside individual brains, capable of solving immediate problems. The other exists across generations, distributed among relationships, traditions, and memories shared by the family. Orcas possess both. A single animal can investigate, adapt, and learn. But the pod remembers things no individual born yesterday could ever know. Together, they create an intelligence larger than any one member alone. This changes how we should think about the mystery that began our journey. Earlier we wondered why humans never became established prey. Now another possibility emerges. If every young orca learns the ocean through its family, then every hunting decision is shaped long before the individual encounters certain animals for the first time. A calf, raised inside a fish-eating community, does not independently discover salmon. It inherits salmon. A calf raised among seal hunters inherits seals. Every successful hunt becomes another lesson, reinforcing what food means inside that society. The ocean itself is interpreted through generations of shared experience, and if prey can be inherited in this way, then so can its absence. Humans may not remain unhunted because each individual orca consciously decides against attacking us. They may remain unhunted because generation after generation never teaches the next that humans belong within the family's understanding of food. The inheritance is cultural before it is personal. But memory alone cannot feed a family. Every lesson carried by a matriarch eventually reaches its greatest test when young animals must transform knowledge into action, because knowing where prey lives is only the beginning. The next generation must still learn how to catch it. The first lesson every young orca learns is not how to kill, it is how to watch. Long before a calf is powerful enough to chase a fish or strong enough to hold a struggling seal beneath the surface, it becomes an observer. Day after day, it swims just behind its mother, matching every turn, every dive, and every breath. The adults seem to move through the ocean effortlessly, but the calf is studying every detail. It learns when the pod suddenly becomes silent. It learns when the pace changes from relaxed traveling to focused pursuit. It learns that certain sounds mean nothing, while others cause every member of the family to react instantly. Like a child following experienced hunters through an unfamiliar forest, it begins to understand that survival is not about strength, it is about paying attention. Every successful hunt the calf witnesses becomes another lesson stored inside a growing memory. There is no classroom beneath the waves, yet every moment in the pod becomes an education. Humans often imagine instinct as a complete set of instructions written into an animal before birth. A spider spins a web without ever seeing another spider. A sea turtle crawls toward the ocean moments after hatching. It is tempting to assume apex predators work the same way, that every hunting technique simply appears when the animal reaches the right age. Orcas prove that assumption wrong. They are born with extraordinary potential, but potential alone has never caught a seal or cornered a whale. Many of the techniques that have made them legendary are not inherited like eye color or body size. They are inherited the way humans inherit language, traditions, and craftsmanship. They are learned patiently, repeated endlessly, and refined over generations. Watching a young orca during its earliest years can sometimes feel surprisingly familiar. It imitates adults even when it does not fully understand what they are doing. It rushes forward too early during a hunt. It misjudges distances. It loses concentration. Sometimes it even seems more interested in playing than feeding. The experienced adults do not abandon it because of these mistakes. Instead, they continue the lesson. Researchers have documented occasions where adults appear to manipulate prey rather than killing it immediately, creating opportunities for younger animals to participate. A fish that could easily be swallowed is released again. A weakened seal is controlled rather than consumed at once. To a human observer, it may seem unnecessarily prolonged. To the calf beside them, it is a chance to practice movements that may one day determine whether it survives. Failure carries little consequence, while experienced relatives remain close enough to intervene. It is a remarkable investment in the future. The hunt becomes both a meal and a classroom. Few places reveal this better than the cold waters of northern Norway each winter. As temperatures fall and daylight shortens, immense schools of Atlantic herring gather inside the fjords. Millions of silver fish move almost as one living organism, constantly shifting shape to confuse predators. Any hunter chasing individual fish would waste enormous amounts of energy. Orcas approach the problem differently. Long before the first strike is made, they begin reshaping the behavior of the entire school. Several individuals spread around the edges of the herring, driving them closer together. Every movement has a purpose. Instead of attacking immediately, the pod slowly compresses the enormous cloud of fish into a dense sphere known as a bait ball. The tighter the fish gather, the fewer escape routes remain. Panic works against them. The more desperately each herring tries to flee, the more tightly packed the school becomes. Only then does the second phase begin. An adult orca accelerates toward the shimmering mass before suddenly rolling slightly onto its side. With astonishing precision, it swings the immense tail directly through the school. The impact is devastating. Fish are not torn apart. They are stunned. Dozens may lose consciousness instantly, floating helplessly toward the surface. Other members of the pod move calmly through the drifting fish, selecting them one by one with almost effortless efficiency. This strategy has become known as carousel feeding because of the circular movements used to herd the herring into increasingly tighter formations. But the remarkable part is not simply the technique itself. It is that calves spend years watching it before becoming skilled participants. They observe where adults position themselves. They learn exactly how much force to use. Too little, and the fish escape. Too much, and valuable energy is wasted. The timing matters. The angle matters. Even the spacing between pod members matters. No calf invents carousel feeding alone. It inherits the knowledge from those that came before. Thousands of kilometers away, another young orca grows up in a world where herring mean almost nothing. Here, the greatest challenge is not fish, but ice. Antarctica appears silent from above. A landscape of endless white, broken only by cracks, drifting floes, and distant mountains of frozen water. For a Weddell seal resting peacefully on an isolated sheet of ice, the platform seems almost perfect. Leopard seals patrol beneath the surface, but the solid ice provides safety. From here, the seal can rest, breathe, and watch the surrounding ocean. Suddenly, several dark dorsal fins appear in the distance. They move slowly, never rushing. The seal notices them, but remains calm. The ice has protected countless seals before. The orcas disappear beneath the surface. Minutes pass. Nothing happens. The seal waits. It cannot know that beneath the ice, the pod is already conducting an inspection. The animals are not charging blindly toward their target. They are studying the flow itself. They measure its size, its thickness, the direction in which it drifts, the position of the seal. One orca surfaces briefly before diving again. Another changes position. Without a single shouted instruction, the family quietly assembles beneath the surface. Then they begin swimming together, not toward the seal, but toward the edge of the ice. Their tails beat in perfect rhythm. The water behind them rises higher and higher as several enormous bodies push forward simultaneously. A wave races toward the flow. The seal braces itself. Water crashes across the surface, but the ice remains just stable enough. The seal slides only slightly before regaining its position. The attack has failed. Yet the orcas show no frustration. They simply circle once more. Another inspection begins. The angle changes. One animal moves farther back. Another shifts slightly left. The adjustments are subtle but deliberate. Once again, the pod accelerates. Another wave rises, larger this time, carrying far more force. The floating ice tilts violently. The seal loses its grip. For a single instant, it hangs between two worlds before sliding helplessly into the water, where the waiting hunters have already anticipated exactly where it will fall. The power of this hunt has never depended on speed. It depends on planning. The wave is not random, it is engineered. Each individual contributes only a portion of the force, but together they transform the ocean itself into a weapon. Young calves spend years watching these events unfold. They cannot create waves alone. They must first learn how several bodies moving together produce a result impossible for one individual. This lesson may take countless attempts before becoming instinctive through experience. Only particular Antarctic populations perform wave washing regularly because only those families inherited the knowledge. Another coastline, another tradition. Along parts of Patagonia, young sea lions gather near sandy beaches, believing the shallow water offers protection from deep-water predators. Most large marine hunters avoid these places because the risk is enormous. A mistake could leave a heavy animal stranded on land with no way to return. Yet certain orca families deliberately surge onto the beach itself. They launch their entire bodies forward with extraordinary precision, using momentum and incoming waves to carry them partly out of the water. For a few breathtaking seconds, predator and prey lie almost side by side on wet sand. The sea lion has almost no chance. The true challenge comes afterward. The orca must wait for the retreating water, twist its body at precisely the right moment, and slide back toward deeper water before gravity traps it completely. It is one of the most dangerous hunting techniques known among marine mammals. A slight miscalculation could become fatal. That is precisely why it cannot simply be invented overnight. Young animals practice gradually under the supervision of experienced adults. They begin in shallow water before attempting full strandings themselves. Every successful return teaches another lesson. Every failure becomes another correction. Only certain populations perform this behavior because only certain families have preserved the tradition across generations. Elsewhere, completely different techniques emerge. Rays buried beneath sand must be detected before they can be captured. Fast-moving dolphins require coordination rather than brute strength. Porpoises may be pursued through narrow channels, where escape routes disappear. Even whale calves, despite their immense size, become vulnerable when several adults coordinate attacks that separate them from protective mothers. Each prey species demands different solutions. Each community develops its own answers. One striking difference appears in the use of sound. Fish hunting families often remain highly vocal throughout the search. Constant communication strengthens coordination because their prey cannot easily exploit those calls. Mammal hunters frequently adopt the opposite strategy. Silence becomes essential. Every unnecessary click could warn a seal or dolphin that danger approaches. Watching these pods travel is almost unsettling because the quiet itself feels deliberate. The family communicates through subtle body movements, positioning and experience built over years together. They do not need constant noise because they already understand one another. Over generations, these specialized hunting traditions become cultural treasures. They survive only as long as experienced animals continue teaching them. If an entire family disappears, its unique knowledge may vanish as well. Somewhere in the distant past, there were undoubtedly hunting strategies that no living scientist will ever witness because the last individuals carrying those traditions died before anyone documented them. Culture, once lost, cannot always be reconstructed. It must be passed forward continuously, or it disappears beneath the waves forever. This is what makes orca hunting fundamentally different from the simple image of a powerful predator chasing prey. Every spectacular technique carries invisible teachers behind it. Every successful calf represents decades of accumulated instruction. Every hunt tells a story that began long before the individuals performing it were born. And once a predator learns to transform water, ice, coastlines, silence and family cooperation into weapons, the balance of the ocean itself begins to change. The great white shark has become one of the most feared animals on Earth. Entire generations have grown up believing that nothing in the ocean inspires more caution than the unmistakable silhouette of a great white rising from the deep. Its reputation has been built through documentaries, newspaper headlines, films, and dramatic footage showing explosive breaches beneath unsuspecting seals. It possesses row after row of serrated teeth, an extraordinary sense of smell capable of detecting tiny traces of blood over immense distances, and enough speed to strike with astonishing force before disappearing back into the darkness. Few marine predators have shaped the human imagination so completely. Along coastlines in South Africa, California, and Australia, the arrival of a large great white often changes the behavior of every animal nearby. Seals hesitate before entering the water. Smaller sharks move away. Even experienced divers treat every encounter with deep respect. For decades, the great white seemed untouchable. It occupied the highest position in its own world. Then, another shadow arrived. At first, researchers noticed something unusual rather than dramatic. Tagged great white sharks that had returned to the same feeding grounds year after year suddenly vanished. Seal colonies that had always attracted sharks became strangely quiet. Days passed, then weeks. The sharks did not die, they simply left. Eventually, scientists connected the disappearances with another, familiar dorsal fin. Orcas had entered the area. What happened next transformed our understanding of the ocean's hierarchy. Several documented encounters revealed that killer whales were not merely capable of attacking great white sharks. They had developed remarkably efficient techniques for doing so. Rather than engaging in chaotic battles, the orcas approached with precision. They often targeted the shark's flanks before using their immense strength to roll the animal upside down. For many shark species, this position induces a temporary physiological state known as tonic immobility. In this condition, the shark becomes disoriented and largely unable to resist. What appears to be one of the ocean's most formidable predators suddenly becomes astonishingly vulnerable. The orcas exploit this brief window with extraordinary efficiency. In several well-documented cases, researchers recovered shark carcasses bearing a remarkably consistent pattern of injuries. The body remained largely intact, the muscles contained little damage, yet one enormous organ was missing, the liver. To understand why, we need to understand the biology of sharks themselves. Unlike many bony fish, sharks do not possess swim bladders to regulate buoyancy. Instead, they rely heavily on an enormous oil-rich liver that can account for a substantial portion of their body weight. This liver contains energy-dense oils that help the shark remain buoyant while also serving as a valuable energy reserve. For an orca, it represents one of the richest food sources available inside the animal. Rather than consuming the entire shark, certain orca populations appear to specialize in removing exactly the part that provides the greatest nutritional reward for the least effort. It is a strategy that reflects efficiency rather than indiscriminate violence. The shark becomes a carefully selected package of energy, not simply another victim. The consequences extend far beyond the individuals being hunted. Great white sharks are themselves apex predators whose presence influences seals, sea lions, and countless smaller species. When orcas begin targeting them, the entire balance shifts. Researchers have documented white sharks abandoning established feeding areas after killer whales appear, sometimes remaining absent for extended periods. The seals that once feared sharks suddenly experience a temporary reduction in predation pressure. Other smaller shark species may expand into areas previously dominated by great whites. Without killing large numbers of sharks, the mere arrival of a pod of orcas can reorganize an entire ecosystem. This is an extraordinary form of ecological influence. The predator, at the very top, does not simply consume animals beneath it. It changes where other predators choose to exist. This pattern appears again and again across different oceans. Offshore killer whales, rarely seen because they spend much of their lives far from land, seem particularly adapted to feeding on sharks and large fish. Scientists studying stranded individuals noticed something curious. Their teeth often displayed extensive wear, far more than those of nearby resident populations feeding mainly on salmon. The explanation likely lies in shark skin itself. Every shark is covered with microscopic tooth-like scales called dermal denticles. These structures reduce drag while creating an extraordinarily rough surface. Repeatedly biting through that abrasive skin over many years gradually grinds away the enamel of the orca's teeth. Even without watching every hunt directly, the bodies of these whales preserve a record of the prey they have consumed throughout their lives. The ocean writes its history into bone and tooth. Yet sharks are not the largest challenge these predators undertake. Along the migration routes of grey whales, another remarkable drama unfolds every year. Pregnant females travel enormous distances toward northern feeding grounds, accompanied by newborn calves, only weeks old. These calves represent an irresistible opportunity for certain mammal-hunting orca populations, but opportunity does not guarantee success. A grey whale mother may outweigh every individual attacker several times over. Her tail alone is capable of delivering devastating blows. Adult escorts sometimes join the defense, forming barriers around the calf while attempting to keep it near the surface for breathing. The orcas respond with patience rather than reckless aggression. They separate, distract, isolate. Some attack from behind, while others focus on drawing the adults away. The objective is rarely direct confrontation with the strongest individual. Instead, the family works together to create moments of vulnerability. Hours may pass before the balance finally shifts. Sometimes the calf is separated. Sometimes the adults succeed in protecting it. These encounters remind us that being an apex predator does not mean every hunt ends in success. Even extraordinary cooperation cannot eliminate uncertainty. In recent years, researchers have documented an even more astonishing example. Blue whales, the largest animals ever known to have lived on Earth, were long believed to exist almost beyond the reach of predation once fully grown. Their immense size alone seemed to place them outside the practical limits of nearly every hunter. Yet observations from several oceans have shown coordinated groups of killer whales attacking even these giants. Such hunts are nothing like the dramatic bursts of speed often shown in wildlife films. They unfold over many hours. The orcas target a single whale repeatedly, preventing rest, forcing changes in direction, and gradually exhausting their prey. Different individuals take turns approaching, allowing others to recover energy. It resembles a relay rather than a sprint. Eventually, exhaustion may overcome even an animal weighing well over 100 tons. Once the whale weakens, the orcas frequently focus on particularly nutritious tissues, such as the tongue, or other soft, energy-rich organs, rather than consuming every part of the carcass. Again, efficiency shapes behavior. They seek maximum nutritional reward while minimizing unnecessary effort. But even these extraordinary hunts sometimes fail. Weather changes, the whale escapes into shallow water. Coordinated attacks lose momentum. Orcas abandon pursuits that no longer justify the energy invested. These failures matter because they remind us not to romanticize apex predators as unstoppable killing machines. Success depends on judgment as much as strength. Choosing which opportunities to pursue and which to abandon is itself part of survival. This distinction becomes especially important when interpreting unusual behavior. Not every interaction involving an orca and another animal represents predation. Researchers have observed killer whales chasing porpoises without feeding on them afterward. In other cases, they have carried dead prey for extended periods without immediate consumption. Young animals sometimes appear to manipulate objects or weakened prey in ways that resemble practice more than feeding. Elsewhere, interactions occur that remain difficult to classify confidently. Was the behavior play, training, social bonding, curiosity, harassment, or a hunt interrupted before completion? Nature rarely divides itself into neat categories. An intelligent predator may perform actions serving several purposes simultaneously. This complexity has often frustrated scientists because it resists simple explanation. Yet it also reveals something profound about orcas. They are not governed by one repetitive behavioral program. Their decisions depend on context, family traditions, experience, and opportunity. The same physical abilities capable of bringing down a great white shark may later be used to investigate drifting kelp or interact gently with another pod. Understanding this flexibility is essential because it prevents us from reducing the animal to a caricature of endless violence. The orca dominates marine food webs not because it attacks everything indiscriminately, but because it knows when, how, and whether an attack is worthwhile. That distinction reshapes entire ecosystems. In places where killer whales regularly hunt sharks, shark behavior changes. Where they target marine mammals, seal populations respond differently than where fish specialists dominate. Every specialized community influences its surroundings in unique ways. An apex predator does not need to consume vast numbers of animals to transform an ecosystem. Sometimes, altering the behavior of another hunter is enough to ripple through every level beneath it. A shark avoiding one coastline changes where seals feed. Seals changing location alters fish populations. Fish influence plankton. The consequences spread outward in ways almost impossible to predict completely. This is ecological power at its highest expression. And yet, for all this dominance, Another side of the orca continues to emerge. The same animal, capable of forcing great white sharks from established hunting grounds, may later spend hours carrying strands of kelp across its body, gently nudging a family member or investigating an unfamiliar object without any obvious purpose. Somewhere inside that enormous brain exists something far more complex than instinct alone. To understand why humans never became established prey, it is no longer enough to study the hunts. We must begin exploring the mind that decides when those hunts should happen at all. The first time researchers truly began questioning the intelligence of killer whales, it did not happen during a spectacular hunt. There were no exploding waves, no fleeing seals, and no dramatic struggle between predator and prey. Instead, it happened during moments that seemed almost ordinary. An orca would stop beside a drifting piece of kelp and carefully balance it across its body for several minutes before another member of the pod copied the behavior. A calf would imitate an unusual movement performed by an older female, despite receiving no obvious reward for doing so. A pod would approach an unfamiliar boat, not with the urgency of hunters closing in on prey, but with the slow, deliberate curiosity of animals trying to understand something they had never encountered before. None of these behaviors helped catch food. None immediately improved survival, yet they spread through families anyway. They hinted at something deeper than instinct. They suggested a mind constantly exploring the world around it. For centuries, intelligence was often measured by comparing animals to ourselves. Could they solve puzzles? Could they recognize their own reflection? Could they use tools or imitate sounds? These questions remain valuable, but they also reveal a limitation in the way humans think. We often judge intelligence by asking how closely another species resembles us, rather than asking what kind of intelligence its own world demands. An orca does not need hands to manipulate objects because it lives in water. It does not need fire, writing, or architecture. It survives inside an environment where sound travels farther than light, where families remain together for decades, and where success depends on remembering enormous landscapes that constantly change with tides, seasons, and migrations. Any mind capable of mastering that world may look very different from our own. The orca possesses one of the largest brains in the animal kingdom. Adult brains can weigh several kilograms, substantially more than the average human brain, but size alone tells us surprisingly little. An elephant has an even larger brain, while some birds with tiny brains demonstrate astonishing problem-solving abilities. Intelligence cannot be measured with a scale. What matters is how that brain is organized and what it allows the animal to accomplish. In orcas, researchers have become increasingly interested in regions associated with social awareness, communication, and the processing of complex information. Yet even here, caution is essential. Brain anatomy can suggest possibilities, but behavior provides the strongest evidence. Fortunately, killer whales have spent decades demonstrating behaviors that invite careful attention. Consider recognition. Human families often recognize one another after many years apart because memory preserves faces, voices, and shared experiences. Orcas appear capable of remarkably similar long-term social recognition within their own communities. Individuals separated for extended periods have been observed responding to familiar calls with immediate interest. Pods maintain relationships spanning decades. Young animals grow into adults, surrounded by relatives they have known since birth. This continuity creates opportunities for memories to accumulate across an entire lifetime. Every migration, every successful hunt, and every encounter with another pod becomes another layer in an expanding mental map. That memory is practical rather than abstract. A matriarch remembering the location of salmon during a difficult year may save the lives of her descendants. A family recognizing another pod avoids unnecessary conflict. Knowledge survives because individuals remember, and the group benefits from that memory. Strategic flexibility provides another clue. During hunts, researchers have repeatedly documented pods changing tactics when initial attempts fail. A wave that does not dislodge a seal leads to repositioning rather than blind repetition. Fish, escaping one direction, are met with new formations. Adults appear capable of evaluating outcomes and modifying behavior rather than simply repeating fixed instinctive sequences. This ability becomes especially apparent during difficult prey captures, where no two situations unfold exactly alike. Ice shifts, currents change, prey reacts unpredictably. Success often depends on adapting in real time. An animal governed only by instinct struggles when conditions become unfamiliar. Orcas repeatedly demonstrate the opposite. Communication reveals another extraordinary dimension of their lives. Earlier we explored family dialects, but dialects themselves tell a larger story. Young calves are not born producing the full vocal repertoire of their pod. They learn it gradually through exposure and practice, much as human children absorb the language spoken around them. Researchers have documented subtle variations in calls passed faithfully through generations. Different communities maintain distinct acoustic traditions despite sharing the same species. These vocal signatures become part of family identity. They are inherited socially rather than genetically. Even more remarkable is the ability of some captive killer whales to imitate sounds outside their normal repertoire, including calls produced by other marine mammals and even certain human-generated sounds under controlled conditions. Such observations do not mean orcas communicate like humans. They demonstrate something equally fascinating: vocal learning. The ability to modify sounds through experience rather than relying entirely on instinct is relatively rare in the animal kingdom and often associated with species possessing unusually complex social lives. Curiosity appears just as consistently. Boats crossing coastal waters sometimes find themselves accompanied by pods that investigate without aggression. Divers occasionally report orcas approaching closely, circling slowly or turning an eye toward them before continuing on their way. Floating logs, drifting seaweed, and unfamiliar debris may receive surprisingly careful attention. None of these interactions necessarily serves an obvious survival purpose. Yet intelligent animals frequently investigate novelty because information itself has value. A new object today may become an important resource or threat tomorrow. Curiosity allows learning before necessity demands it. Play expands that picture further. Orcas have been observed carrying long strands of kelp across their bodies, balancing them over rostrums or passing them between companions. Calves chase bubbles, surf waves generated by larger relatives, and repeatedly interact with floating objects, despite receiving no food from the activity. Adults sometimes join these behaviors as well, suggesting that play remains important beyond childhood. Recently, researchers have even described what appear to be temporary behavioral fashions within certain populations, unusual interactions spreading through multiple individuals before gradually fading again. These behaviors resemble cultural trends more than survival strategies. They remind us that intelligent social animals sometimes copy one another simply because they live together. Not every learned behavior must solve an immediate ecological problem. Some exist because social learning itself has become a defining feature of life. Food sharing strengthens that conclusion. Adult orcas frequently share prey with calves and close relatives. While this certainly benefits younger animals nutritionally, it also creates opportunities for observation and participation. A calf does not merely receive food, it receives another lesson. Which parts of the prey are eaten first? How is it handled? Which family members participate? Every meal becomes another contribution to social education. In many ways, feeding reinforces relationships as much as it satisfies hunger. Perhaps the most emotionally challenging observations involve mothers carrying dead calves. On several occasions, researchers have documented females supporting deceased offspring at the surface for days, sometimes far longer, despite the enormous physical effort required. These events naturally evoke human ideas of grief and mourning. It is impossible to watch such behavior without feeling that something deeply significant is taking place. Yet science demands careful language. We cannot directly access an orca's subjective emotional experience. We do not know whether the mother feels grief exactly as a human parent would. What we can say is that the behavior demonstrates prolonged attachment, persistence, and social responses extending well beyond any immediate survival benefit. Those observations deserve respect, without requiring us to project our own emotions onto another species. This balance is essential throughout the study of animal intelligence. Anthropomorphism, assuming animals think exactly like humans, can mislead us. But the opposite mistake can be equally damaging. If we dismiss every complex behavior as mere instinct simply because it occurs in another species, we blind ourselves to genuine evidence of sophisticated cognition. Orcas constantly challenge this balance. They invite admiration while demanding restraint. Another mystery continues to puzzle researchers. In several regions, killer whales have been observed killing or harassing porpoises without consuming them. At first glance, this seems wasteful and difficult to explain. Why invest energy in capturing an animal only to leave it uneaten? Several possibilities have been proposed. Young animals may be practicing hunting techniques on manageable prey. Adults may be reinforcing social bonds through shared activity. Some interactions could represent redirected predatory behavior triggered by circumstances unrelated to feeding. Others may simply reflect motivations scientists have not yet identified. The honest answer remains uncertainty. Intelligent animals sometimes perform behaviors serving multiple functions simultaneously. Not every action fits neatly into human categories. This uncertainty tells us something important about intelligence itself. Highly cognitive animals often become less predictable because they possess greater behavioral flexibility. A machine follows fixed instructions. A thoughtful individual responds to context. Orcas repeatedly demonstrate the second pattern. Their choices vary according to family traditions, ecological conditions, previous experience, and social relationships. They investigate, they imitate, they remember, they adapt. They surprise even the researchers who have spent decades studying them. And this returns us to the question that has quietly followed every chapter of this story. If an orca can remember individual companions for decades, distinguish family dialects, investigate unfamiliar objects, modify hunting strategies after failure, and learn entirely new behaviors through observation, then humans are almost certainly not invisible within its world. A diver drifting through open water is noticed. A kayak crossing a fjord is noticed. A fishing boat hauling lines from the sea is noticed. The real mystery is no longer whether orcas recognize us. It is something far more intriguing. What, exactly, do they believe we are? A diver floating in open water often describes the first encounter with a wild orca in almost the same way. There is the initial shock of realizing how large the animal truly is. Photographs never prepare you for that moment. A fully grown male glides out of the blue with almost no visible effort, its black back absorbing the light, while the white eye patch flashes briefly beneath the surface. The animal circles once, sometimes twice, turning one eye toward the unfamiliar visitor before slipping silently past. The diver holds perfectly still. The orca could close the remaining distance in less than a second. It does not. It disappears into the blue as calmly as it arrived. For the human, the moment may become the defining memory of a lifetime. For the orca, it appears to have been little more than an inspection. That simple difference lies at the heart of one of the ocean's greatest mysteries. Humans often describe every close encounter with a large predator using the same language. The shark was stalking me. The bear was hunting me. The wolf was sizing me up. Yet biologists are careful with these words because they describe completely different behaviors. An animal approaching another is not necessarily hunting it. Observing is not the same as pursuing. Following is not the same as attacking. Touching is not the same as feeding. Even threatening behavior can occur without any intention of predation. If we fail to separate these actions, every close encounter immediately becomes a story about attempted hunting, when the evidence may suggest something entirely different. This distinction matters enormously when discussing wild orcas. Throughout decades of documented encounters, killer whales have approached swimmers, divers, surfers, kayakers, and people floating beside boats. They have circled them, investigated them, swum beneath them, and occasionally made physical contact. These encounters can feel overwhelming because of the extraordinary imbalance in size and power. But feeling vulnerable does not automatically reveal what the predator intends. The behavior itself must be examined. Did the animal attempt to capture the person? Did it use the coordinated hunting strategies normally seen with prey? Did it continue pursuing once the individual moved away? Did it attempt to consume the victim afterward? When researchers ask these questions, a remarkable pattern appears. Wild encounters rarely resemble predation. That observation becomes even more extraordinary when viewed against everything we have already learned. Orcas are perfectly capable of coordinating complex attacks. They distinguish prey with remarkable accuracy. They possess generations of accumulated hunting traditions. They can overpower animals many times larger than a human being. If they regularly regarded humans as prey, we would expect clear evidence spread across different oceans and multiple populations. Instead, we find something strikingly different. There is no known wild orca community with an established hunting tradition centered on humans. This may be the single most important fact in the entire documentary. Every specialized hunting culture we have explored exists because knowledge passes from one generation to the next. Fish-eating families teach salmon hunting, mammal hunters teach seal hunting, offshore populations teach shark hunting, yet nowhere has a stable family tradition emerged in which calves learn to identify humans as normal food. The absence is not temporary. It stretches across populations, separated by oceans, and across centuries of human observation. Why? The simplest explanation is also the least satisfying. Some people suggest that humans simply taste unpleasant, but predators rarely discover prey preferences through random experimentation. An animal does not repeatedly attack unfamiliar species simply to decide whether they are delicious. Others claim orcas possess a unique moral understanding and deliberately spare humans out of compassion. It is an appealing story, but there is no scientific evidence supporting such a conclusion. We cannot enter an orca's mind and attribute human ethics to its decisions. Another explanation proposes that killer whales fear us. Yet this also struggles to explain reality. Wild orcas confidently approach large vessels, interact with fishing operations, and occasionally investigate people at close range. Fear alone cannot account for such varied behavior. The deeper answer appears to lie in everything we have already discovered about orca culture. These predators do not hunt every vulnerable animal they encounter. They hunt the prey their family has taught them to recognize. This principle changes the question completely. Instead of asking why humans are spared despite being edible, we ask why humans never entered the inherited prey system in the first place. Consider how a young orca experiences the world. During its earliest years, every successful hunt reinforces specific patterns. Certain shapes become associated with food. Certain movements trigger pursuit. Certain sounds accompany prey. The calf learns not only how to capture seals or fish, but also which animals deserve attention at all. Prey recognition becomes part of social education. If no adult in the family pursues humans, the calf never witnesses humans being treated as food. The cycle reinforces itself across generations. Adults ignore humans. Calves observe adults ignoring humans. The next generation grows up with the same inherited understanding. Humans remain outside the family's hunting tradition, not because each individual consciously rejects them, but because they were never included in the cultural definition of prey. Ecology strengthens this explanation. Orca hunting traditions evolved long before humans regularly entered the marine environments these predators occupied. Seals, sea lions, dolphins, whales, sharks, and fish formed stable, predictable food resources over evolutionary timescales. Humans did not. Until relatively recently, people spent little time swimming in offshore waters where killer whales hunted. Our ancestors traveled mainly by land, gathered along coastlines or crossed oceans in relatively small numbers. There was never consistent ecological pressure encouraging orcas to develop specialized human hunting traditions. The prey already available provided abundant energy without requiring unfamiliar risks. Even today, humans differ dramatically from the animals most killer whales consume. We move differently through the water. Our bodies lack the thick, insulating blubber characteristic of marine mammals. We produce different sounds. Our swimming behavior is awkward compared with seals or dolphins. We spend little continuous time in the ocean. From an energetic perspective, a human offers far less reward than a healthy seal or a large fish. For a predator that has evolved remarkable efficiency, unfamiliar low-reward prey simply provides little incentive. This does not mean humans are invisible. Quite the opposite. Orcas clearly notice us. They investigate boats. They inspect divers. They observe kayakers and surfers. The question is not whether they recognize us. The question is what category we occupy inside their understanding of the world. We may simply represent something interesting, but irrelevant to feeding. Some researchers have suggested that orcas likely distinguish between different types of human-related objects as well. A swimmer, a diver wearing unfamiliar equipment, a surfboard, a kayak, and a fishing vessel each create different visual and acoustic signatures. We cannot know exactly how the animals interpret these differences, but observations suggest they respond differently depending on context. Boats producing predictable sounds may become associated with fishing opportunities. Divers descending quietly may provoke prolonged curiosity. Small craft may attract investigation because they behave unlike any natural object in the sea. None of this requires humans to be categorized as prey. It simply reflects the flexible curiosity already demonstrated throughout orca societies. The distinction between wild and captive behavior also deserves careful consideration. Several fatal incidents involving captive killer whales have understandably shaped public perception. These events demonstrate beyond question that orcas possess immense physical power and can inflict catastrophic injuries on humans. They should never be dismissed or minimized, but interpreting them requires understanding the radically different conditions under which they occurred. A captive orca lives inside an environment no wild individual has ever evolved to experience. Space is restricted. Social groups may be altered repeatedly. Opportunities for natural hunting disappear. Human proximity becomes constant rather than occasional. Control over daily life changes fundamentally. Behavior emerging under those conditions cannot automatically be treated as evidence that wild populations regard humans as prey. The incidents reveal what an orca is capable of doing. They do not demonstrate what wild orcas normally choose to do in the open ocean. This distinction mirrors an important principle found throughout animal behavior. Capability and typical behavior are not the same thing. A lion can kill a hyena, but does not hunt every hyena it encounters. A great white shark can bite many unfamiliar objects without doing so routinely. Predators constantly evaluate opportunity, reward, familiarity, and risk. Orcas appear to do the same, but with an additional layer shaped by cultural inheritance. Throughout this documentary, we have watched family traditions determine prey selection, hunting techniques, and communication styles. The human exception fits naturally into that broader pattern. The strongest explanation, therefore, is not a single cause, but a combination of interacting factors. Dietary specialization limits what different populations normally pursue. Cultural learning teaches calves which animals belong inside the family's menu. Ecological history never established humans as reliable prey. Prey recognition develops around familiar shapes, movements, and behaviors, rather than every vulnerable creature encountered. Humans provide comparatively little energetic reward. Unfamiliar prey introduces uncertainty. And because no generation establishes a stable hunting tradition focused on humans, the absence of that tradition reinforces itself across time. In other words, wild orcas do not appear to ask only one question when another animal enters their world. They do not simply ask, "Can I kill this?" They also inherit a second question from every generation before them. Is this food, and do we know how to hunt it? For humans, the answer has remained remarkably consistent. Yet our relationship with killer whales continues to evolve. We fish where they hunt. We cross their migration routes. We fill the oceans with vessels whose engines become familiar sounds. In some regions, killer whales have begun incorporating aspects of our presence into their daily lives in ways no previous generation could have experienced. Humans may not have entered the orca's prey culture, but we are increasingly becoming part of its learned environment. A fishing vessel has been working the same stretch of ocean for hours. The crew knows the routine almost by memory. Thousands of baited hooks disappear beneath the surface, along a line that may stretch for many kilometers before the waiting begins. Somewhere below, tuna, cod, halibut, or toothfish encounter an opportunity that appears too good to ignore. Hours later, the engines increase their rhythm as the crew begins hauling the long line back toward the boat. Hook after hook rises from the deep, carrying flashes of silver beneath the surface. It should be a straightforward harvest. Instead, the fishermen notice another familiar sound cutting through the waves. Tall black dorsal fins appear behind the stern. Within minutes, the catch begins disappearing before it ever reaches the deck. Fish that survived the hooks now become easy targets for predators that have learned something remarkable. They no longer need to search the ocean for scattered prey. Humans have already done the difficult work for them. From the perspective of an orca, a commercial fishing operation can represent one of the most predictable feeding opportunities ever created. A hunting strategy that once required locating schools of fish across enormous distances suddenly becomes much simpler. The fish are concentrated, weakened, and slowly pulled toward the surface on a moving line that announces its position through engine noise and familiar routines. Some populations have learned to recognize this pattern with astonishing efficiency. They appear as the line is retrieved, not by chance, but because experience has taught them exactly when the reward becomes available. Researchers studying these interactions have found evidence suggesting that certain orcas distinguish between different vessel sounds and fishing practices. Boats hauling long lines produce recognizable acoustic signatures, engines change speed, hydraulic equipment begins operating. The rhythm of activity follows remarkably consistent sequences. Over time, intelligent animals capable of long-term learning can begin associating those signals with food. What begins as an accidental discovery may gradually become a reliable feeding strategy. Once one experienced individual succeeds, the behavior rarely remains isolated for long. We have already seen how knowledge spreads within orca families. Hunting techniques move from one generation to the next through observation and imitation. The same process appears to occur with interactions involving human activities. Young whales, accompanying experienced adults, witness successful encounters with fishing vessels. They observe where the family positions itself, when it approaches, and how fish are removed from the line. Gradually, the behavior becomes part of the local culture, not because the whales evolved genetically to exploit commercial fishing, but because they learned to take advantage of a new opportunity introduced only recently in evolutionary terms. In many ways, this represents the same cultural flexibility that allowed different populations to develop carousel feeding, wave washing, or intentional stranding. The environment changed, and certain families responded by creating new traditions. For fishing crews, however, the experience can be deeply frustrating. Every fish removed from the line represents lost income. Some fisheries suffer significant economic damage when repeated interactions occur over an entire season. In certain regions, crews may travel hundreds of kilometers, only to find killer whales waiting each time they begin retrieving their gear. Decades of experience at sea suddenly become less valuable because another predator has learned to anticipate the harvest almost as effectively as the fishermen themselves. Understandably, this has sometimes created tension between people trying to earn a living and animals simply exploiting an available food source. Yet the situation carries risks for the orcas as well. Long lines, hooks, and heavy fishing gear were never part of the natural environment in which these predators evolved. Approaching vessels increases the possibility of entanglement. Fishing equipment can cause injuries to the mouth or body. In some parts of the world, frustration has historically led to deliberate attempts to drive whales away or even kill them. Throughout much of the 20th century, killer whales were often viewed not as extraordinary wildlife, but as competitors stealing valuable fish from human industries. Governments in several countries even encouraged or supported campaigns to reduce local populations, believing fewer orcas would benefit commercial fisheries. Looking back today, those policies seem almost unimaginable, but they reveal how dramatically public perception has changed. Few animals have undergone such a profound transformation in the human imagination. There was a time when the very name killer whale inspired fear before understanding. Fishermen described them as ruthless competitors. Coastal communities often regarded them as dangerous nuisances. Later, public aquariums introduced millions of people to captive orcas, performing spectacular jumps and synchronized routines. For many children, these displays became their first encounter with the species. The image shifted once again as scientists revealed the extraordinary complexity of wild populations. Suddenly, the same predator once feared and persecuted became a symbol of intelligence, family bonds, and marine conservation. Modern documentaries replaced myths with research, revealing not monsters beneath the waves, but sophisticated societies navigating increasingly human-dominated oceans. Even so, the relationship continues evolving in unexpected ways. Nowhere has this been more evident than along the Atlantic coasts of Spain and Portugal. In recent years, a small population of Iberian killer whales has repeatedly interacted with sailing vessels in ways that surprised both sailors and researchers. Reports described whales approaching boats, focusing particular attention on rudders and occasionally damaging steering systems badly enough to disable the vessel. Videos spread rapidly across the internet, often accompanied by dramatic headlines suggesting coordinated attacks or even revenge against humans. The reality, as so often happens in wildlife biology, proved far more complicated than the headlines suggested. Scientists studying these interactions emphasize that there is no convincing evidence the whales are attempting to hunt or deliberately kill the people aboard. The attention consistently centers on the rudder rather than the occupants of the vessel. Even when boats have suffered significant damage, the whales have not transitioned into predatory behavior toward humans in the water. This distinction matters because it separates a remarkable behavioral phenomenon from the entirely different question of prey selection. The whales are interacting with boats, not treating people as food. Why they do so remains an active area of research. Several possibilities have been proposed. Young individuals may initially have treated rudders as unusual moving objects worthy of investigation. Play, already common among orcas, could reinforce repeated interactions. Curiosity may have encouraged experimentation with unfamiliar structures, unlike anything found in nature. Some researchers suggest the behavior may have begun after one influential individual discovered the sensation produced by manipulating a rudder, and others simply copied it. Another possibility is that the interactions spread through social learning, much like temporary behavioral fashions observed elsewhere in orca societies. Importantly, none of these explanations requires anger, revenge, or deliberate hostility toward humans. They rely instead on processes already documented throughout the species: innovation, imitation, and cultural transmission. This idea of behavioral fashions may sound surprisingly familiar because humans experience something similar constantly. A new activity appears within one social group, spreads rapidly through observation and imitation, then sometimes fades away without providing any obvious survival advantage. Orcas appear capable of comparable social diffusion. Certain play behaviors involving kelp, unusual prey handling techniques, or novel interactions with objects have all been observed spreading through particular communities. The Iberian rudder interactions may represent another example of this remarkable cultural flexibility, though the exact motivation remains uncertain. That uncertainty is important. Scientific honesty requires acknowledging where evidence ends and speculation begins. It is tempting to fill every unanswered question with dramatic stories, especially when those stories attract public attention. But nature is often more fascinating precisely because it refuses to fit simple narratives. An intelligent animal does not need to be seeking revenge in order to develop unusual behavior. Curiosity, learning, and social imitation may be entirely sufficient. At the same time, the danger to sailors should not be dismissed. A disabled vessel at sea can create genuinely hazardous situations, particularly in poor weather or busy shipping lanes. Rescue operations have occasionally been required following rudder damage, placing both crews and emergency responders at risk. Conservation, therefore, involves balancing two legitimate concerns. Human safety must be protected, while avoiding unnecessary harm to a critically vulnerable population already facing numerous environmental pressures. Simple solutions rarely exist when intelligent wildlife and expanding human activity begin overlapping in increasingly complex ways. Perhaps the most revealing aspect of these modern interactions is what they tell us about the way orcas perceive a changing world. Throughout this documentary, we have followed an animal whose greatest strength lies not only in muscle or speed, but in the ability to learn. Every generation inherits traditions, while remaining capable of innovation when circumstances change. Commercial fishing introduced entirely new feeding opportunities. Recreational sailing created unfamiliar moving structures unlike anything in natural history. Boats became part of the acoustic landscape. Engine sounds became environmental cues. Humans, without intending to, have entered the educational world of the orca. We are no longer simply distant observers watching these predators from the shore. Our technology, our routines, and our presence increasingly influence what young whales experience as they grow. Yet despite all of this learning, one pattern remains remarkably stable. Boats may become sources of food, fishing operations may become opportunities, rudders may become objects of fascination. Human beings themselves still do not become established prey. The relationship continues changing, but not in the direction generations of fearful stories once imagined. For centuries, people worried about what killer whales might one day do to us. The more urgent question now may be something entirely different. As our oceans warm, our fisheries expand, our shipping increases, and our coastlines continue to change, what are we doing to the societies that taught these remarkable predators how to survive in the first place? A lone swimmer floats in calm water as an orca passes silently beneath. At the beginning of this journey, that moment seemed almost impossible to explain. Everything we knew about predators suggested the outcome should have been different. Here was an animal powerful enough to kill almost anything it encountered. Here was a human with no shelter, no speed, and no meaningful defense. The imbalance could hardly have been greater. Yet the orca looked, turned, and continued on its way. We began with a mystery built on power. We end with a story built on inheritance. Because the closer we looked, the less the answer depended on strength, and the more it depended on everything that came before that encounter ever happened. It is easy to speak about killer whales as though they share one common future. We often refer to the orca as if every population lives the same life, faces the same challenges, and responds to the same opportunities. But by now, that illusion has disappeared. There is no single global orca society. There are communities separated not only by geography, but by culture, language, prey, tradition, and memory. Some populations continue expanding into new waters as changing oceans create fresh opportunities. Others stand on the edge of decline, despite receiving decades of scientific attention. Every pod carries its own history. Every family inherits a different ocean. Perhaps nowhere is this contrast clearer than among the southern resident killer whales of the Pacific Northwest. These whales have become some of the most intensively studied marine mammals on Earth, not because they are unusually mysterious, but because their future has become increasingly uncertain. Unlike neighboring Big's killer whales that specialize in hunting marine mammals, the southern residents have remained remarkably faithful to fish, especially one species above all others, Chinook salmon. These salmon are larger than most other Pacific salmon, carrying rich stores of fat that provide exceptional nutritional value. Generation after generation of southern residents built their lives around this dependable food source. Their migration routes, seasonal movements, and family traditions became intertwined with the annual return of Chinook salmon to the rivers where they were born. For thousands of years, that partnership worked remarkably well. But culture, while extraordinarily powerful, can also become a source of vulnerability. From a human perspective, the solution may appear obvious. If salmon become scarce, why not switch to seals? Nearby killer whales hunt them successfully. We have watched other populations pursue dolphins, porpoises, and even sharks. Surely one of the ocean's most intelligent predators could simply change its menu. Yet this question misunderstands everything we have learned. A southern resident orca does not inherit only a preference for salmon. It inherits an entire way of living built around salmon, the sounds used while searching, the places visited throughout the year, the social knowledge passed between generations, the hunting methods perfected over centuries. Fish are not simply food, they are culture. Changing that culture is far more difficult than changing a meal. Humans understand something similar in different ways. Entire communities preserve languages, traditions, and skills across generations. A family business passed from grandparents to grandchildren contains more than technical knowledge. It contains identity. Orca societies function in much the same way. The techniques required to hunt seals successfully are not hidden abilities waiting to emerge. They must be observed, practiced, and refined within families that already possess them. A salmon specialist cannot instantly become a seal specialist any more than a master violinist can suddenly perform complex surgery simply because both require intelligence. Different traditions demand different education. As Chinook populations have declined through habitat alteration, dams, changing river systems, and other human influences, the southern residents have faced increasing nutritional stress. Their problem is not a lack of intelligence, it is the extraordinary specialization that once made them so successful. The same cultural inheritance that allowed them to thrive for thousands of years now limits their flexibility in a rapidly changing environment. Food is only one challenge. The modern ocean has become progressively louder than the one their ancestors inherited. Every large vessel crossing coastal waters produces low-frequency noise that spreads for enormous distances beneath the surface. Cargo ships, ferries, recreational boats, and commercial traffic create an almost continuous acoustic background in many important orca habitats. For animals whose lives depend upon sound, this transformation is profound. We often think of noise as an annoyance. For an orca, it can become an obstacle to survival. Echolocation depends upon receiving faint returning echoes from distant objects. Communication depends upon family members hearing one another clearly across changing distances. Hunting often requires precise acoustic information about prey hidden beneath dark or murky water. When engine noise masks those signals, the consequences extend far beyond inconvenience. Researchers have found evidence suggesting vessel traffic may reduce communication range, interfere with echolocation, and force whales to increase the intensity of their calls simply to remain connected. A family traveling together through busy shipping lanes may hear less of one another than their ancestors ever did. During cooperative hunts, subtle acoustic information may become more difficult to interpret. Every additional layer of human noise alters an environment built around sound. Physical disturbance compounds the problem. Boats following whales too closely can interrupt feeding, resting, and social behavior. Even well-intentioned wildlife tourism must be carefully managed because repeated disturbance consumes time and energy the animals cannot easily replace. A predator already struggling to locate sufficient prey cannot afford to waste hours repeatedly changing direction or abandoning feeding opportunities because vessels remain too close. Then there are the invisible threats. Killer whales occupy the highest levels of marine food webs. Every contaminant accumulating through smaller animals eventually concentrates inside apex predators. Industrial chemicals, heavy metals, and persistent pollutants stored in the fat of prey gradually build within the bodies of the whales themselves. During periods of nutritional stress, when stored fat is metabolized for energy, some of these contaminants re-enter the bloodstream. Mothers face an especially difficult burden because pollutants accumulated over decades may be transferred to calves during pregnancy and nursing. The very process of giving new life can also pass along substances no family ever evolved to carry. Entanglement in fishing gear remains another danger. Strong though they are, orcas are not invulnerable to ropes, nets, and heavy equipment designed for industrial fisheries. Vessel strikes, though less common than for some other whale species, continue posing risks wherever marine traffic overlaps with important habitat. Every threat alone may appear manageable. Together, they create cumulative pressure on populations already living close to ecological limits. Climate change adds another layer of complexity because its effects are far from uniform. In the Arctic, diminishing sea ice is opening regions that remained inaccessible to many killer whales for much of recorded history. Some populations now spend increasing amounts of time exploring waters previously blocked by thick seasonal ice. From the perspective of the orcas, new hunting opportunities emerge. From the perspective of animals that evolved alongside permanent ice, the consequences may be profound. Narwhals, belugas, bowhead whales, and other ice-associated species developed under conditions where extensive sea ice provided refuge from predators unable to reach them easily. As that barrier weakens, entirely new predator-prey relationships begin forming. For some orca populations, warming oceans may temporarily expand available habitat. For others, dependent upon stable prey distributions, changing ecosystems create uncertainty. Climate change therefore produces both winners and losers, even within the same species. There is no single orca story because there is no single ocean anymore. This realization changes the meaning of conservation itself. Protecting killer whales cannot mean preserving only total numbers. Imagine losing one isolated population whose members possess a dialect spoken nowhere else on Earth. Along with those individuals disappears an entire acoustic tradition. Imagine another community vanishing after perfecting a unique hunting strategy over countless generations. That knowledge disappears too. Migration routes remembered only by aging matriarchs fade from existence. Ecological memory, accumulated across centuries, simply ends. When we lose one culturally distinct orca population, we lose more than animals. We lose a library that was never written down. We lose behaviors no scientist may have fully documented. We lose ways of interpreting the ocean that evolved over thousands of years. It is entirely possible that unique killer whale cultures have already vanished before researchers even realized they existed. Entire dialects may have fallen silent. Hunting traditions may have disappeared without cameras ever recording them. Family histories, stretching back farther than human memory, may have ended unnoticed beneath changing seas. That possibility should give us pause because it reminds us how much remains unknown. Throughout this documentary, the greatest discoveries often emerged only after scientists stopped assuming every orca was the same. The deeper they looked, the richer the diversity became. And now we arrive once more at the swimmer drifting alone in open water. The scene itself has not changed. The same black dorsal fin still cuts through the surface. The same enormous predator still glides effortlessly beneath the vulnerable human. But our understanding has changed completely. At the beginning, the silence surrounding that encounter seemed almost unsettling because we interpreted the moment through a single question: why didn't the orca attack? Now we understand that the question itself was incomplete. An orca does not move through the ocean seeing one endless menu of possible prey. Its world has structure. Family gives that structure meaning. Memory preserves it. Sound connects it. Culture shapes it. Tradition reinforces it. Experience refines it. Opportunity modifies it. Within that inherited world, a salmon, a seal, a shark, a whale, a fishing boat, and a human do not carry the same meaning. They are not interpreted in the same way by every population, because every population inherits a different story about the ocean. The great white shark learns to fear a place where orcas have appeared before. A seal resting on Antarctic ice cannot understand that generations of whales perfected the waves now rising beneath it. A salmon, swimming toward the river of its birth, unknowingly follows a migration remembered by matriarchs long before the youngest calves were born. And a human floating quietly in open water encounters a predator that possesses every physical ability required to end the meeting in an instant, yet belongs to a culture in which humans never became part of the inherited definition of prey. That is the deeper answer hidden beneath the title of this story. The ocean's most powerful predator does not leave humans alive because it lacks the strength to kill us, nor can we honestly claim it chooses mercy in the human sense of the word. The explanation is more remarkable because it emerges not from myth, but from the extraordinary societies these animals have built over thousands of generations. Every young orca inherits more than a body designed for hunting. It inherits a map of the sea, a language of its family, memories carried by older generations, traditions refined across centuries, and an understanding of what belongs within its world. Somewhere across that immense inheritance, humans were never written into the story. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson the killer whale offers us. The closer we look at the ocean's most formidable predator, the less we discover a machine built only to kill. Instead, we find a civilization shaped by family, culture, and memory, reminding us that even at the top of the food chain, survival is not defined by power alone, but by everything that one generation chooses to teach the next.